That's why when I looked myself in the mirror, I could actually see myself from two different angles. Once from the angle of my physical eyes, and twice from the angle of the eyes of my soul. Hello everyone, I hope you are all doing great. Today I would like to share with you something a little bit unusual. I want to share with you my near-death experience. The date of my testimony is the 24th of June 2020. Right after the event, I wrote it all down on my WordPress blog, and I will attach the link in the info bar for you, and I invite you to go and kindly read it for yourselves. And also I'm very glad I wrote it all down because today it will be much more easier for me to recreate the whole testimony for you, to retell the whole testimony for you without omitting anything important, because this is a very complex testimony. The actual date was the 24th of June. I want to start the whole story with the day before that. For those of you who do not know, I'm a school teacher, and my school is not in the town where I live, but it's actually in a nearby town at around 15 miles away from here. So on the 23rd of June 2020, I believe we had a school exam organized that day. So I had to be present at the school and for the exam. And the exam itself took many hours. So I decided to do some paperwork as well aside from the exam. But it turned out that one of the school books was missing, which was very bizarre, and I can see the Lord orchestrating everything behind the scenes. It was all just meant to be, because school books don't just go missing like that. They are always properly kept on their places. They don't just go missing like that. So we finished the exam, but I actually couldn't finish my other paperwork, but I didn't give it much thought, and just in the end of the working day I went back home. On the following morning, the 24th of June, I woke up at around 7:30, and I didn't have any plans to go to the school. Maybe I forgot to mention, but the previous day I went to the school by exception, just for the exam. But on the following day, I didn't have to go to the school because we were in a summer holiday. When I woke up, suddenly I started feeling very unsettled about my unfinished paperwork. I started to feel anxious about it. And because I couldn't find peace, I decided that the best thing to do was to just jump into my car, to drive to the school, find the book, and just finish my paperwork and have it all done, just to brush it off. That's what I did. I jumped into the car, drove to the school, found the missing school book straight away, and it took me not more than 5 to 10 minutes to get all my paperwork done. And I was very happy and I was ready to go home. But suddenly an idea popped up in my mind. I remembered there was a lovely bakery place right next to the school. So I decided it would be just wonderful to go in the bakery and buy some desserts for my family, for my mom and for my dad, just as a little surprise, just as a little treat. So I went to the bakery place and I bought 3 pieces of a special dessert, a traditional Bulgarian dessert, which is made with a lot of sugar syrup. So I got the 3 pieces, I left them on the car seat and I drove home. When I came back home, I just continued with my daily chores. It was a little bit of a busy day and I didn't have time for a proper lunch, for a proper meal at lunch time. So I decided to just have my piece of the dessert. And a few minutes after I had my piece, I started to feel very unusual. I started to have these very strange sensations. I looked myself in the mirror and I could see myself from 2 different angles. Let me try to explain. I had the strange sensation that my soul was a little bit off my body, like a little bit higher, a little bit separated. Usually when we are in a perfect health, our soul is just perfectly placed within our body. But just for some reason, my soul started to slightly separate from my body. And that's why when I looked myself in the mirror, I could actually see myself from 2 different angles. Once from the angle of my physical eyes, and twice from the angle of the eyes of my soul, which was very bizarre. But I thought it must have been my blood sugar or my blood pressure. I didn't really know, so I decided the best thing to do is to go for a little afternoon nap. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when my alarm clock rang, I woke up to the living hell. I felt terrible dizziness, dryness in the mouth. I couldn't focus my vision, swinging, unstable, unsettled, confused. I felt very disturbed. And I remember I went to the bathroom mirror and I looked myself and I saw like my eye pupils, the black things in the eyes, they were huge. It was just my whites and the black part, just white and black. The iris was almost not there. Just the eye pupils were huge. They were taking the whole iris. And I got really scared, very confused. I had some lessons in the afternoon and I tried to text the parent of my student, but everything was so blurry. I couldn't focus. Until this day, I have no explanation how I managed to text that parent and cancel my lesson. I believe this was the first time in my life I have ever cancelled a lesson. It was so serious. And after that, I figured out I should call for some help. So somehow, with a lot of effort, I called my mom, who was downstairs at that time, and I said to her, "Mom, please come upstairs, I'm dying." And I tried to go to the bathroom for a few times, but I couldn't pee because it turned out that my kidneys had stopped functioning. Just things were going in a very wrong direction. Still no clear explanation of what was going on. It took my mom many minutes to come upstairs. She opened the door and she said to me, "I feel terrible." It turned out she also had her dessert. So we came to the realization it was the dessert. And now I want to explain exactly what was wrong with this dessert. As I mentioned before, this dessert is made with a lot of sugar syrup. and it was very hot that day. And while I was driving back home from the heat in the car, the sugar syrup got fermented and it became highly toxic, like methyl alcohol. So it turned out me and my mom got intoxicated by methyl alcohol, which can be very, very dangerous. So our eyesight was blurry, kidneys stopped functioning, terrible dizziness, and we dropped on the two beds in my room and we tried to call an ambulance. The emergency lady from the other side of the phone line started to ask questions, and when we explained to her that we had had some dessert, she just didn't believe us. She didn't take us seriously. That's why she refused us an ambulance and she advised us to call for a private ambulance. And she gave us the number of the private ambulance. While I was trying to call this private ambulance number, I actually lost it, so I had to Google it, and until this day I don't have an explanation how I managed to Google it. Eventually I found it and we called that number, but again when we explained about the dessert, they didn't believe us and they actually refused us a private ambulance and they advised us to get a taxi. But me and my mom, we didn't call a taxi because we weren't just able to make it to the taxi. We weren't able to raise a hand, we weren't able to raise our heads. We were completely helpless. There was no way to make it to the taxi. That's why we didn't call a taxi. So the next thing we figured out was to call our GP, but he didn't answer, which was very bizarre, and I can see the Lord behind the scenes orchestrating everything, because our GP is just awesome and he always makes that extra mile for us and he's always there. Just it was very, very bizarre. He didn't answer our call, and then we decided to call my dad. But that day it happened for him to have a dentist appointment in a far, far city from here, and it would take him many, many hours before he managed to make it home. So it turned out there was no hope from nowhere. And me and my mom, we were just laying in beds, and I was constantly asking her again and again, "Mom, are you there? Mom, are you alive? Mom, are you awake? Mom, are you alright?" And I praise the Lord, kept answering me again and again that she was still alive. And some hours passed by and we started to feel a little bit better, which was just amazing. We decided to slowly make it to downstairs and just go outside in the backyard and have some fresh air. So very, very slowly, and by supporting each other and supporting ourselves on the walls, we actually made it to the backyard, and we sat down in the yard chairs and we had some fresh air, and my dog was just running around and touching her soft ears and soft fur. It was the most comforting thing. The comforting feeling of her softness just anchored me in this world. It was such a strange experience. Everything seemed to get back to normal slowly when suddenly I started to receive these hallucinations. I'm not sure if the right term is hallucinations, because the image I was seeing was very stable and I saw one and the same thing 3 times. I will try to explain. I was looking at the green grass before me, the tree, the bushes, the leaves, when suddenly I realized it was all just a 2D movie screen with the perfect illusion of a 3D. For example, the tree before me created the illusion of being a closer object to me just because its contrast was darker and its outlines were sharper. And just that created the illusion it was closer to me than the other things. And another very interesting observation, I could see the birds on the tree emerging from a point zero. Just a bird would emerge from a point zero and create the image of a bird. And that brought me to the realization our reality was just a 2D movie screen with the perfect illusion of a 3D. Then the evening came, my father came back home, and everything got back to normal. I still couldn't focus and my eyesight was blurry, but I had to text some of my students for the following day, for the lessons for the following day, and also I had to do my 10-minute daily Bible reading. For these things I needed my eyesight. So I remembered I had some lenses from a microscope and telescope set which I had as a child. So I took one of the lenses, I put it before my eye and I closed my other eye, and that's how, with the help of the lens from my microscope and telescope set, actually I managed to text my students and do my 10-minute daily Bible reading. And the evening was just fine. We went to bed as normal, and on the following morning I woke up at around 6:30 in the morning, and I rushed downstairs to check if my mom was alright. And she was totally fine, but it turned out that the previous night my dad hadn't believed us it was the dessert, so he actually had the third piece of the dessert and he went through the same living hell during the night. But in the morning he was just getting better and better, so we all survived the intoxication with the fermented sugar syrup, and everything went back to normal. We were all just fine. I still partially didn't have my eyesight back, but all of the rest was just fine. And we continued with our daily chores, but I couldn't stop thinking about the revelation I had the previous day about our reality, that it is actually a 2D movie screen with the perfect illusion of a 3D. And suddenly the Holy Spirit started talking to me about this movie screen which we call our reality. So he brought to my mind a memory from my childhood. I remembered an illustration that we had in our textbooks in 4th grade or maybe in 5th grade. I don't really remember, but this illustration in the textbooks showed how the human eye works. Let me try to explain it all to you.